because you're misplaced. Medication is not necessary for ADHD unless you are working and living in an environment that was never meant for you. And if you're alive and you have an ADHD nervous system and you live in a city or you work a regular job, then pretty much you're in some form of misalignment. That's a bold statement, but for me it's truth. Look, I've never taken ADHD medication, so I can't speak from having done it and then quit because I never knew that I actually had ADHD until just this last year. So how is it if medicating ADHD is treating a chemical problem that theoretically, according to the system, exists in our brain? Maybe an underdeveloped prefrontal cortex or a lower level of dopamine. If we're treating that, a chemical problem with a chemical solution, then how is it that I went 40 years without ever needing medication? Well, that's what I want to explore with you today. Look, I'm not anti-help. I'm not anti-medication. Well, a little bit. I'm a little bit against medication, but I'm up for you to have the decision, to have the choice, the freedom to choose whatever path might make most sense for you. In fact, I recognize that short-term medication could be very helpful, but I want to spend today talking about why I believe that medication in the long term is a horrible path, and why I believe that you'd be better off just learning how to navigate your life and your nervous system without pills, because they're not really doing you any good. Your nervous system is built for an environment that you do not live in. This modern world it's not made for us. Look, ADHD is not a focus problem. ADHD is a regulation problem, right? Regulating the nervous system, understanding how to navigate the intense highs and the intense lows, understanding how to manage our energy and understand our emotions, right? That is definitely an ADHD challenge. Maybe not a problem, but a challenge. It's also an environment problem. My bet, my hypothesis is that if you were in the right environment, you would never need ADHD medication. Now, I know this from personal experience, and I'll share with you a little bit more about that in a minute. But I will also say, most importantly, that the medication and ADHD chemical problem isn't really the thing. The thing is a meaning problem, purpose, something to contribute towards, something to pour yourself into. You see, I believe that with the proper effort, then in the proper environment, then you will no doubt have an easier time navigating life with ADHD. Now look, I'll tell you a little story about when I was living in Bolivia in South America. I was working at a very prestigious restaurant. It was the most famous restaurant in the country. I kind of fell ass backwards into this job. But it was the career that I had been training myself for. I had been working in the restaurant business for a long time. I was a certified sommelier. I was a professional beer taster. I loved everything about the restaurant industry, especially fine dining. And when I found myself in Bolivia, I found myself getting the position of the restaurant manager and the sommelier, the wine professional, for a project that was focused on helping the world to become more familiar with the cuisine and the gastronomy of Bolivia. And it was designed to be a school where Bolivian youth could learn how to be the next generation of chefs, the next generation of wine professionals, the people that could showcase everything that this country had to offer. Now, my wife at the time was half Bolivian, half American, so I was really invested in learning as much as I could about her country and her culture. So all of a sudden I showed up for this really intense work, this job that was, I was serving diplomats and presidents and celebrities. People were coming from all over the globe to come and sit in our dining room so that they could experience our plates, our tasting menus, right? And so there was a lot of pressure. I was speaking 3 languages on the dining room floor. I was managing a staff in Spanish, which my Spanish in the beginning was pretty terrible. But even though I had long hours and I had difficult, really challenging physical work on my feet for 10 to 12 hours a day, lots of pressure, I had purpose. I had something to contribute to. I had something to pour myself into. I was there helping to change the trajectory of the international perspective of a country and their cuisine, much like what happened with Peru, Gaston Acurio, and some of the major changes that people had when Peru became like an international player on the food scene. I also was there to help change the lives of people that were like underprivileged, that grew up in very, very impoverished country, had very little education, and I was able to give them the technical skills, the practical skills to help them to actually create something with their lives. In fact, many of those people now own and have established restaurants in La Paz, Bolivia, which I'm really proud to say that I was able to contribute to. So even though I had the intense work, I didn't have focus problems because I had purpose. I had a mission. The environment was actually really good for me because I don't know if you've ever worked in a restaurant before, but there's so much happening. It's very intense. It's multisensorial. There's lots of data coming in. Everything is kind of like on fire, and it's like triage in an ER where you have to know where your attention goes to. And there's something absolutely magical about having a person with ADHD in this space. So because I also belonged to a tribe, I belonged to a team, I showed up and I put on my suit and I was there speaking the language of the people that I worked with, representing a culture, representing my wife's culture. I had something to pour myself into. So I never, ever considered that I might have ADHD or that I had some sort of a chemical issue in my brain. But there was a moment when that meaning shifted, when this cultural project, this not-for-profit that was there to help elevate the cuisine of a country and to help elevate the lives of many young people, when it turned into a profit-driven motivation, all of a sudden everything changed for me. My work was much less being on the floor and sharing experiences to then all of a sudden doing a lot of paperwork and sitting down at the computer. And that's where all of a sudden I had a focus problem. Now, I'll admit to you that even though I didn't medicate myself with prescription ADHD pills, I never knew that I had an ADHD diagnosis back then. I was medicating with alcohol, with caffeine, with sex, with all kinds of things, right? So there was medication happening. It was just a very unhealthy kind. But all of a sudden, I couldn't handle the fatigue. I couldn't handle essentially all the symptoms of burnout, and I collapsed. White powder addiction, alcohol addiction, and a sex addiction basically shut down my marriage, shut down my career in that moment, and I was let go. And it was rough. But now, look at what happens now is that I can see that I was missing some of those key ingredients, right? The purpose was gone, and therefore I had dopamine issues. I had focus challenges. The drive was gone because I didn't have something to pour myself into. So I was getting burned out, and that's where I was over medicating with alcohol, and I was essentially numbing. I had an emptiness inside of me. And so now, knowing that I have this diagnosis, it's very clear to me that I was medicating at the time, even though I didn't know about anything about any of these types of Vyvanse or any of these other pharmaceutical options. But look, it is possible to have a life without ADHD medication. I managed it for many years. I managed it because I had meaning and purpose. I managed it because I was part of a team. I was part of something bigger than myself. I had someone to show up for. I had people who were counting on me, right? I had an environment that really supported my nervous system because, I mean, go to any restaurant, any bar, any night kind of a job like that where people have to deal with very dynamic situations, and you'll find a lot of ADHDers. That environment was very supportive for me. And so in that space, in that time, I didn't need medication. But now when I work for myself, when I'm building my own business, and when I don't have a team at the moment, I do find myself in positions where I think, man, I could really use some focus medication. Now, I don't take it. I'm not planning on it because I believe that there's a better way to design my life, a better environment to set myself up in. I don't I don't do well when I sit at home and I work by myself, right? I like to go and body double when I work with other people. There's other people around me. That is extremely effective for me at getting my focus set up so that I can actually get the task done that I need to get done. I don't take pills for that. I use a strategy. I surround myself with people who know the challenges and who recognize that if we all tell each other about what we need to get done, we're more likely to do it. I do my best to get connected to my mission and my purpose every single day. Why did I build this business? Why do I want to help people? Why do I want to show up? If I can get connected to that, I'm more likely to be able to deal with and navigate the difficulties of, say, administrative work. In fact, my next step is to outsource that administrative work because, frankly, you don't want a guy like me balancing your checkbook, balancing your accounts. It's just not where my attention is best served. So that's where there's a misalignment issue, right? If I were to try to be a bookkeeper, if I were to try to be an office administrator or something like that, it would be a horrible nightmare and I would absolutely need the pills in order to stay focused. Now, I'm going to give you some simple questions that you can ask yourself to see not should I medicate or not. I want you to ask these questions to yourself first before you even reach out to get that pharmaceutical script. The first one, are you alone too much? Do you spend too much time alone? Do you work by yourself? Do you work at home? Are you stuck behind a computer screen? Do you spend most of your day not in contact with other people? If yes, that might be a difficult thing. And that is a place where you can change things to get some leverage and avoid having to use medication. Number two, are you in work that is meaningful to you? Are you contributing to something that is bigger than you? If yes, awesome, you're on your way. If no, this might be an area that you can change. If you're just slinging hamburgers so that somebody can have an easy, fast, convenient, and cheap meal on their way to work, I really doubt that you're going to feel fully satisfied on a deep level, and I bet you're going to have difficulty really focusing on the tasks at hand. The third question is, do you have tribe? Do you have community? Do you have people that care about you? Do you have people that you care about? Do you have people that will check on you, that are asking how you're doing? Do you have people that depend on you and will notice if you don't show up? Right? If you don't have this community, this could be a big challenge for you. Number four, do you move your body daily? If you're sitting for 8 hours at a time behind a desk, you are never going to stay focused and concentrated. You have to move your body regularly. And I'm talking like every 30 minutes, every 45 minutes. Number five, does your nervous system ever feel safe? Now, that's an interesting one because you might say, well, I've got a house, I've got a paycheck, right? I'm not under a threat. I'm not being chased by animals. I'm not being surrounded by bombs or something like that. But look, chances are that your body doesn't actually feel safe. In fact, most of the time when we reach out for some sort of a coping mechanism, food or alcohol or cigarettes, usually we're in a situation where our nervous system doesn't feel safe and we're trying to create a false sense of safety, or at least trying to numb that need for safety in our system. Now look, there's one thing that you need to consider as you shift your life to be more in alignment with your nervous system. which is that you're going to have to not be normal. You can't be normal because we, with an ADHD nervous system, we're not normal. We are not the majority of the population. We are not what society wants, what society needs. Society wants people that will put on their little hats and their little uniforms and clock in at work and go and believe in the idea of a retirement savings and believe that the social security system is going to save you and that the government's going to protect you, right? Society wants that. It doesn't want people who are going to question things. But we, us ADHD nervous system folk, we don't fit in that, and we never will. So if you're medicating, it's because you're trying to fit into a system that you're not aligned for. So before you reach out for the pills, I want you to think about this. Am I really living the life that is best designed for me, that is best designed for my nervous system? And if you don't have a clear yes, then maybe you want to check in and see how I can better adjust my nervous system or my environment, my work, my drive and my purpose to better fit my nervous system. That's why I was able to go for 40 years without needing any medication in order to live. It's because most of the time I was in some sort of an environment that, even though I unconsciously chose it, was better suited for me. I'll leave it at that, but if any of this has resonated, I want you to hit that subscribe button and please join me, because I am here to support you in living life with ADHD without medication and without substance abuse. And if that is a life that you want to tap into, then I'm not going to promise you that we're going to fix everything in 1 hour or with one video, but I'm going to tell you that there is a path. You do not need these things in order to live, but what you do need to do is start questioning your life and realize that there is a different way. If you're medicating, it means that something is misaligned. So I'll see you on the next live video. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments and I would love to help answer any of the things that you're looking to get answers for. Right? We're not doing this alone. Until next time.